Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mind of Sai Marie. Today we are joined by Holly B. Gutwillinger, the author of North Broken and Forever Home. Holly, your work dives deep into the human spirit and the messy, beautiful process of putting pieces back together. So I just want to give you a warm welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, that's a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So let's talk about that title, North of Broken and Forever Home. What was that initial spark for this story and the specific fractures that these characters are carrying?
Well, the initial spark comes from my dog, Sully. So the two dogs in the story are actually my dogs. And this story started out as me trying to investigate how I could help my dogs or fix them. They were already about 10 years old when I started this process. And it kind of came upon by accident. Sully was just sort of hopping through the backyard, and I looked at him in a different way that day, and a little poem downloaded to my thoughts in his voice. And it just kind of kept going from there. And I started to develop a different sense, like a different approach to my dogs, because they're both high needs, we'll say. One is very assertive and the other one is so timid you can't approach him. And like I said, we've had them for 10 years, so we've tried so many things. But when he approached me that day, and that those short phrases like, I'm okay, you don't need to fix me, just accept me the way I've accepted you, it just catapulted me into writing more and more and more. And it actually had a completely different title before, and I that one came up sort of at the last minute for me.
Wow. So pacing is so vital in stories about recovery. How do you decide when to give the reader that piece of the puzzle and when to withhold it to keep the tension?
That is a fine balance as well, because when I was first writing the story, it was completely different. Messy first draft, I had action starting right from the first chapter, and I was told, well, first of all, you can never have a dog expire in a book. You'll lose your reader. And so I really had to navigate that, because I thought, well, maybe there would be. And then I was told not to. So I really had to shift and know when to rise that climax, like that conflict, and then to bring it back down again to give the reader a break. Because when you're talking about dogs, a rescue mission, you know there's going to be some moments in there where you might be a little teary eyed, let's just say.
Right, of course. It's definitely a delicate territory to be on. So,
Hmm.
building an internal world that feels relatable in extreme circumstances is a challenge. How did you approach building your protagonist's internal world?
Well, she does have a lot of similar traits to me. So it wasn't too far of a shift for me because, like I said, the story started out as autofiction. And when I realized I wanted to give my dog a voice in the story, I knew I had to shift gears. And so I created a whole new character. And although she has some of my traits, she's definitely her own person now. But I knew that I had to show the reader her inner turmoil, her inner conflict, and what she was going through, what she was putting herself through, the thoughts she was having, in order for the reader to see the arc at the end and how she not necessarily comes out of it, but makes some changes in her life so that she can cope with situations differently.
So, in North of Broken and Forever Home, you explore the ripple effect of healing. How do these animal bonds challenge the relationships and trust of the secondary characters around them?
That was definitely a challenge because the protagonist, Renly, really wants to have another dog. They've already had a dog before, but he passed away at an older age and due to health issues. And so she desperately wants to get another dog right away, but her husband doesn't want to. And so there's his attitude and his reactions to her saying she wants another dog, and then she works at a shelter as a volunteer. So he's forever reacting, and not only him, but also her mother is giving her grief, we'll say, the actions that she does. Like, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but there's a moment where there's definitely some conflict in the marriage because of her actions.
So, we're in 2026 now. How do modern conversations on privacy and mental health influence the way you wrote about characters seeking safety?
Good question. A couple years ago, I went through um, a tumultuous year and a half after a dental procedure sort of went sideways. And I was really dealing with a lot of anxiety because of it. And I mean, I know all of the textbook answers, but That's fine and dandy, but when you are in the middle of stress and anxiety, it's very difficult to implement those skills because you almost can't see your way out of it. And so I utilized that experience because it was still so fresh in order to infuse the feelings into the main character's traits in the book.
So I noticed a cinematic quality in your prose. Do you see the scenes as a film while drafting, or are you more focused on like the plotting and the internal prose?
Definitely cinematic. I can actually have the entire outline play in my head, and then I'll sit down and jot down all of the bullet points. And then I see it as a continuous reel that's just building and building and building. And actually, somebody asked me the other day, what's something that people don't know about you or something quirky? And I thought, well, before I go to bed, I'm like when you tell your children or a young person a story time, bedtime story, I should say, it's kind of what I do with myself. I will just lay there and recount a story from start to whenever I fall asleep. And it's a movie. It's definitely a movie. And then I hope it stays with me until the next morning.
That's awesome. I share that quality with you.
Awesome.
Every author has a favorite moment of life, so to speak, or a specific direction they love leading the reader. Was there one for this book that was especially fun to write?
Yes, gosh. There were so many, but it's tough not to give away plot here. There is an episode that I tell this story freely, but my second dog, Cash, when we first got him, we left him at home. Like we stayed at home for the first few days. And then my husband went home first from work. And he let Cash out of the room that he was staying in during the day because he was new to us and we were trying to let him get comfortable with his environment. My husband went out to get some sandwiches for supper and he gave him free reign of the house. But we didn't know that my son had left the window open in the second story bedroom. It was like a 4 level split. We get home and my husband gets home and he calls me and he says, I don't know where Cash is. So I hurry and we look at the window. We have no idea. We can't figure it out, but we go into my son's bedroom and we see the screen with a perfect hole in the middle. Like he's Superman out of the window, landed onto the deck. Thank goodness the gazebo wasn't put up and just kept running. And the neighbor saw it all happen.
Wow.
I guess it's not really a moment of light, but it was a fun moment to recreate because nobody would believe that story. And I took a photo once we found him, he was fine. I took a photo of the screen and I've never deleted that photo because I thought, how did you manage to survive that? And he just kept running.
So, talk to me about the philosophy on the perfect ending. Do you prefer to leave a lingering question or tie up every loose thread?
Well, as a reader, I love having everything tied up in a perfect bow. So that's definitely how I like to leave my reader. And with this story, especially, I mean, we're dealing with dogs. We know how humans get with their dogs and their cats and animals, and no one wants to see anyone suffering. And so I prefer to have a wrapped up ending. Is that I'm not giving anything away there?
So, research is often overlooked. Was there a specific area, whether that was psychological, rescue based, or otherwise, that you had to dive into for this book?
I did check in with the rescue shelter where I got my dogs from in order to recount the rescue mission. I mean, the story is based on my own two dogs, so all I had to recreate were the human characters. But the stories you see in the book of like the occurrences that happened to them are real. The only thing that I had to research was the actual day where they went up north for the rescue mission, but I'm all too familiar with it because I did live in Northern Canada, so it's not unfamiliar to me. But that's really all the research that I had to do. And I just let my dogs lead the way and tell the story. And I was just the messenger.
So, for the new readers discovering you through North of Broken and Forever Home, what is the one thing you want them to know about your author brand?
I would love it if when they picked up the book, they had a sense of comfort knowing that I will be taking them on a journey that is relatable and full of moments of, well, ups and downs, we'll say. But knowing that I created that story based on the love I have for my dogs. And my brand is it's cozy, it's authentic. I work in my backyard shed here, and this is where I create and my dogs are always around me. And I just want readers to know that It's from the deepest place in my heart. That's where this story comes from.
So, how has your approach to the first draft changed since you started your career?
It hasn't really changed. I write what I need to put down on the piece of paper, whether that's in a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, however long it takes to get those initial thoughts down on the paper. And then I let it sit for a while and just work on something different. And when I feel ready, I pick it up again and we start fresh. I suppose in the beginning, like with this first novel, everything was new to me. So I wasn't quite clear on what the next step was, but I'm surrounded by a lot of supportive writers and never at a loss for someone to ask a question and give me an answer for. So I just kept working through it. And there were times when I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just kept revising and getting into critique groups and that sort of thing, exchanging pages so that I could get feedback. But now, I mean, it won't really change the next time that I work through a draft. It's just that I'll have more knowledge and more confidence.
So, for those who are stuck in the middle of their manuscript, what is your best advice for reconnecting with the story's heartbeat?
Take a step back, set it down, work on something different, whether that be in the writing realm or maybe it's something that's creatively different. Maybe it's a different medium. Could be drawing, painting, and it doesn't mean that you have to be an artist. It's just doing something that switches your brain off from the pressures of not being able to perform in a sense to just doing something for fun or movement. Movement always gets me writing in my head. And when I get home, usually when I'm running or walking, I have to stop and take note. So that would be the other thing I would say is movement. Whatever that looks like for you, maybe it's swimming, walking, running.
So, is this journey a closed chapter, or are there more secrets and stories in this world that you're planning to explore?
Funny you should ask that because I've my husband asked me that question and I may have left a little something at the end of the story in order for me to piggyback from. And yeah, we'll see if that comes to fruition. I have to let that simmer and let that story evolve on its own so that it can come back to me, and because it would be a completely new story. And so I need to sit with that one, sit with those characters, and hopefully they'll let me know what they want to do.
So, for the creative who feels their work might be too niche, what is your advice for finding the sweet spot where your voice meets a broad audience?
I am very niche. I mean, I focus on dogs and cats at this point, but it's not because I'm not open to other genres. It's just where I am. And so when I first started this project a few years ago, I was very much in a place of heart centered writing. And so I would just write about my feelings, my thoughts, and I thought that was just too light and fluffy. And so every time I would approach someone else who was, we'll say, more advanced than I or a more seasoned writer, I was embarrassed or I didn't want to say anything. I would call myself a writer from the heart. And so eventually I started to change and shift into writing what I thought the reader wanted to see. But then I lost touch with the writing altogether. And I stopped for a while because it was no longer authentic. And I had to make a decision at that point if I was going to continue or just let it be another one of those things that Holly quits. And I thought, no, this is where I feel at peace. So I needed to go back to my authentic voice. And the words came back right away. So it's just, I mean, you could call that niche even in itself, but it's all about instinct and a gut feeling for me and my writing. And I would say, stay true to that, even when you feel like there's pressures from the outside.
I agree with that. Holly, your words provide a roadmap for anyone navigating their own broken chapters, and thank you for your honesty, your craft, and spending time with us on the Mind of Sai Marie today. Everyone, go pick up North of Broken and Forever Home. I have the link in the show description notes. They are essential reading for the soul. Until the next time, remember the mind is the most important story that we'll ever tell.